to the Garden State for CBS Sports' next stop on the PBA Tour. Live from Carolier Lanes in North Brunswick, New Jersey, it's the 1998 Brunswick Johnny Petraglia Open. Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Seibel, along with PBA Hall of Famer Marshall Holman. Well, the first 4 weeks of the Spring-Summer Tour were dominated by left-handers, but this week, Marshall, not one single southpaw in sight.
Gary, you're absolutely right. The Tour has been dominated by left-handers, and take a look at this. 3 out of 4 tournaments have been won by lefties. The sole exception was Norm Duke with his win at Tucson. But this week, the conditions were different. In fact, all the top 24 players were right-handed.
As you pointed out, Marshall, 3 of 4 left-handed winners this week, all right-handers and all new faces. Who are we going to see?
Well, new faces in 4 very diverse styles, starting with Tim Criss, who threw 3 strikes in the 10th frame to take the #1 spot in today's telecast. And with his slow ball speed and big hook, he looks to take it all today. One of these 3 men will meet our tournament leader, and our shootout consists of, from right to left, Amleto Monacelli, Brian Voss, and Dave Wodka. Now, Amleto Monacelli with the strength of a superior mental game and the physical talent to go with it. Amleto looks to get back into the winner's circle. Brian Voss, one of the dominant players of the 80s and 90s with his picture-perfect form. Brian looks to take advantage of yet another opportunity. And Dave Wodka, the less experienced player, but he has the power game to keep him striking all day.
Well, we are set for our shootout round in the Brunswick Johnny Petraglia Open. The winner cashes in for $28,000. And the #2 seed can earn no less than 3rd place money regardless of the score in the shootout. We're set to bowl. And there you see Brian Voss and Amleto Monacelli waiting their turn. Up right now is Dave Wodka. 8 years on the PBA Tour. And he is set to go.
It comes in a little bit high. Gary leaves the 9-pin. Maybe just a little slow. One of Dave's best assets is his good ball speed. Needs to keep the speed up in order to hold the pocket.
Lives in Long Island, 27 years old, and converts in frame #1. So Dave Wodka starting out our shootout round with a spare. Up next will be Brian Voss, who's led a rather itinerant life, has lived in Anchorage, Alaska, Bismarck, North Dakota, presently lives in Atlanta, Georgia, because of the accessibility of the Atlanta airport, so we can get home as often as possible. And a 2-8 lead for Brian Voss in his first shot in frame #1.
They came in just a little bit light, Gary. Didn't quite either get enough fingers in the ball, or maybe he needs to throw the ball a little bit slower. He's been throwing kind of a crawl speed himself this week.
Second shot.
Difficult spare. Just hangs on to get it.
And a smile from the crowd from Brian Voss. And now up next, Amleto Monacelli, the only international player in the PBA Hall of Fame and 2-time player of the year back-to-back in 1989 and 1990.
And watch Amleto wind it up. He's throwing the big hook today. And a good result.
So Amleto starting things out with a strike in the first. And we take a look at Dave Wodka's record for the week, making a charge on Friday night to grab 4th.
Better speed. And the desired result.
Marshall, the story, big story this week, right-handers. And here we see one of them.
We'll take a look at Dave Wodka from the low angle. Watch the ball drive back into the pocket. Ball hits the 5-pin, carries it into the 4 and the 7. And a happy result for Dave.
So, Dave Wodka, strike for him. Here's how Brian Voss did this week. Our 3rd seed after Friday's action. And it looked like, Marshall, he was on the head pin there.
Well, a little light in the first frame, a little high in the second frame. As we take a look at a replay as the ball goes right through the heart of the pins, fortunate only to leave the 3-6-10.
So Brian Voss now in frame #2, looking to convert the 3-6-10.
Not an easy spare.
And he gets it done. Marshall, what happened to the lefties this week?
Well, the lane conditions were a little bit different this week. They went a little shorter with the oil, enabling the bowlers to be able to get the ball to hook back in the back ends. It also gave them multiple angles. As you can see today, Amleto playing the big hook. Our other bowls going a little straighter, especially Dave Wodka.
Marshall, it looked like he came in a little bit light there.
Well, he did. As you can see, the ball just did not get far enough up into the pocket. Fortunate just to leave the 2-pin. And where his ball on lane 35 hooked back, on 36, not quite.
So Amleto Monacelli converts in the second.
Dave Wodka working on a strike can take a 10-pin lead over Amleto Monacelli and a 13-pin lead over Brian Voss with a strike here on the left lane.
And leaves the solid 10.
Well, a little bit of a light 10, Gary. Didn't quite get the ball far enough up in the pocket. The 6-pin stayed in the channel. Did not come back out to knock the 10 out. He'll throw the ball very hard and straight to pick up the 10-pin.
Dave looking for his first PBA win.
And a player with a lot of ability, a great physical game, starting to believe in himself more and more as the years wear on.
His mom was a professional bowler, Mom Kathy, won a few titles as a matter of fact. And Brian Voss, we spoke about him earlier. You'll see that right now Dave Wodka and Amleto Monacelli are even, with Brian Voss just a mere 3 pins behind. Brian's dad spent a lifetime in the Air Force, and therefore Brian got to live in a lot of different and interesting places.
Oh, and a late trip with a 4-pin. We'll take a look at Brian Voss from behind. The ball starts out around the 9 board, goes out to 3. Now it hooks in real hard, and it just trips out the 4-pin. And a happy Brian Voss.
Monacelli, big hook. Works for him, works perfectly as a matter of fact. We have just begun in the shootout round, and we'll be back with more action in just a moment. Determined who made today's TV finals. Tim Criss doubled in the 10th frame of his final game, Marshall, to get the top seed in the tournament.
And Brian Voss working on 8 in a row, trying to solidify a position in the top 4. Well, he throws that one in the gutter, but he does strike the game out and makes our top 4. Walter Ray Williams Jr. on 10 shots in a row, 10 strikes in a row, going for 300. Not to be. The solid 10 leaves Walter with a 289.
And Walter just missed making the show. Dave Wodka won 7 of his late matches to go from 7th to 4th in the shootout. That's this week's Alka-Seltzer Friday night recap. And it's been a great week here at the Brunswick Johnny Petraglia Open. There you see tournament chairperson Kathy Kubanak, who has been most hospitable to all of the bowlers and all of us. Back to the shootout round, frame number 4. Dave Wodka is up. Bowling certainly all in the family for Dave. His mom, Kathy, met his father at a bowling center. Dave met his wife, Lori, at a bowling center.
And unfortunately for Dave, the 210, the ball did not quite hook up. Seems like lane 36 is going a little bit longer.
Well, you can catch the PBA Tour online. You'll get the latest tournament results and features, plus stats, bios, and chat live with the pros on www.pbatour.com, sponsored by Brunswick.
And he just slides by the 2-pin.
Sorry, Marshall, there's a shot of Dave's wife, Lori.
We see the ball just needed to touch a little of that 2-pin to throw it into the 10, and didn't quite get it done. And now Brian Voss up on lane 35 with the opportunity to take the lead. Got a hole.
And Brian Voss not happy with that one, Marshall.
Well, the ball did not quite hold the pocket. And when I say hold, I mean stop hooking balls. You can see at the pins, the ball's a little bit high in the pocket. 4-pin is there, and it's not going to fall down. Brian Voss now shooting for the spare. Hard and straight, no problem for Brian.
So Brian Voss will convert the spare in the fourth frame. Amleto Monacelli is up next. Amleto from Venezuela, although both of his parents are Italian-born. His father loved the game of bowling, and in the 1960s bought a bowling center, 12-lane bowling center in their local town in Brunswick.
Take a look at that hook. It's a solid 10 for Amleto. That is a very, very exciting line. As we'll see, Amleto very deep on the approach, throws the ball well out to the right. It's on the two board right there, Gary. And unfortunately, a solid 10. A great shot. Sometimes the good shots don't quite strike. That's an illustration of it right there. As he just hangs on for the 10 pin.
Hung on for that one. So Amleto Monacelli will pick up the spare as well. Well, coming up next here on CBS, it's golf, the MasterCard Colonial. And we'll take a look at the leaderboard. Harrison Frazier looking to go wire to wire, up by 2 strokes right now. Back to bowling. And Dave Wodka.
And that's the power I spoke of earlier, Gary. This man can really throw the ball very, very fast with a lot of spin. Take a look from behind. I just see him really lift the ball out on the lane, and it charges back. Here comes the messenger. It's over. And he needs it, and he got it.
And the story for Dave today, looking for his first PBA title. Brian Voss, on the other hand, has 18, looking for his 19th PBA tournament title.
Now, Dave Wodka finds himself bowling against 2 Hall of Famers, and he certainly would be the underdog. Right now, trailing by 14. Amleto up in the 5th frame. Well, he came in high. It was really just not a good shot. And with that big hook that Amleto throws, it's not unusual to have it dive through the pins and leave a mess like this 3, 6, 9, 10. And certainly not an easy spare conversion, Gary. He must get the ball in between the 3-pin and the 6-pin, but have enough power to drive back and get the sleeper 9. We'll see if Amleto can get it done. Hurry up.
Ooh. And Marshall leaves the 9.
He leaves that 9-pin. As I said, a very difficult spare to make. A lot of ways to miss it. Right now, that puts Brian Voss in the lead. 12 pins over Amleto, and 11 pins over Dave Wodka.
And here is Dave Wodka in the 6th, looking for 2 in a row. And he has accomplished that. 2 consecutive strikes for Dave Wodka.
Dave Wodka cuts that deficit down to just 1 pin.
But presently, Voss is the boss, up by 1 and 12 over Monacelli.
With a chance to extend by 10. There's some fire from Brian Voss. Brian knows he can take an extra 10-pin lead with that strike. Gives it a little emotion.
Amleto Monacelli up in the 6th as well, trying to match his 2 opponents here with a strike in the 6th. And that had a hurry-up, Marshall. 2-8 leave for Amleto.
And once again, the right-hand lane not hooking back as far, comes in light. Did not take care of the 2 and the 8-pin, and Amleto needs to really settle himself down, make this spare, and then get it going in the subsequent frames.
Will convert the spare. There you see it, Brian Voss with an 11-pin lead. We'll be back. A 1982 inductee into the PBA Hall of Fame. Johnny's won 14 titles and is also the only man elected PBA president 3 times.
And there he is, Johnny Petraglia, not only a great player, but certainly one of the great ambassadors for our sport of bowling.
And there you see the score. Brian Voss up by 11.
Now, not anymore. Now he's up by only 1 as Dave Wodka throws his 3rd consecutive strike. Watch Dave Wodka here as he loads it up and really unleashes through the ball. Hooks it back strongly, scatters those pins with a power strike. And a good reaction. That's right, Dave.
Brian Voss next up in the 7th frame. Oh, and Marshall, he got that 10-pin to crumble.
Well, he got the good reaction this time. Was able to answer Dave Wodka's strike. Take a look at the 6-pin, second to the left as it goes to the right, as it knocks just barely into the 10-pin. 6-pin does the damage, and Brian Voss does the celebration.
So we start out the 7th frame with a strike from Dave Wodka and 1 from Brian Voss. And here's Amleto Monacelli, who hits it high, Marshall, and just can't seem to find the line right now.
No, he leaves the 3-6, Gary, and he's lost. He's coming in high on this left-hand lane, as you can see from our pin angle, leaving the 3-6. He's light on lane 36. He's high on lane 35. He just goes by that spare and misses it. And it certainly looks as if Amleto Monacelli is almost done in this match. But he's got a great mental game, as I said earlier, and he'll keep working.
Well, Brian Voss still with that 11-pin lead over Dave Wodka, but now 45 over Amleto Monacelli. And Dave Wodka does not seem to be intimidated by the fact he's competing against 2 guys with 18 PBA titles apiece. And he proves it once again with a very solid strike.
Absolutely gorgeous delivery from Dave Wodka as he just pummels the pins here. Take a look at the shoulder high backswing. You've heard me say high flush. That's what it looks like. Perfect in the pocket and a great reaction. Once again,
1-pin lead, Marshall, for Brian Voss.
Well, we'll make that 11-pin lead, Gary, as Brian has the answer every time Dave Wodka throws a shot.
And they are neck and neck. 1 pin, then 11, then back to 1.
Right now, the best Amleto can do is shoot 202, and I just don't think that's going to be enough for the Hall of Famer to make it into our finals.
Well, coming up next week, it's the Greater Harrisburg Open from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Tom Baker looking to defend his title, and we've got a 5 o'clock airtime, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the Greater Harrisburg Open.
For the foundation strike in the 9th, it's got to stop.
Well, Marshall, a little messenger action to come over and knock out the 6 and 10, but he looked a little high anyhow.
It was a bad shot. Did come in high. Fortunate just to leave the 6 and 10. It looked like for a moment he was going to leave the baby split, and he knows he didn't make a good shot, and it's time to just relax and pick up his spare.
And of course, this may very well have opened the door for Brian Voss.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, Brian Voss already up by 12 pins with a strike here in the 9th. Could really have things going his way and give himself a great opportunity to be bowling against Tim Criss for this title.
Brian Voss working on a pair of strikes. Actually, he's got 4 in a row going into the 9th frame.
This is the lane that doesn't hook quite as much. Have to be careful with the speed.
And a solid 10-pin.
Well, Brian did what he needed to do. The ball may have been just a little bit left off his hand. It comes into the pocket. Once again, there goes the 6 around the bottom of the 10-pin, leaving the solid 10. And a little bit of heartbreak for Brian Voss.
Well, right now, Brian Voss with a possible 236. And as he converts.
And he cannot be shut out. Right now, Dave Wodka can shoot 225. Brian Voss can shoot 236. So Brian still got things pretty well going his way, although he would have loved to have had that strike there.
And Amleto Monacelli in the 9th.
And as you can see, he's got a highlight frame going here. He's high one shot, he's light the next. He's trying to make the adjustments. As I said earlier, you need to be quick with the adjustments you make on a national telecast. Well, in order to make this, you need to get the ball over on the left-hand side and then knock that head pin into the 10. Let's see if he can take care of business. And he did.
He did. Great pickup from Monacelli. Although his possible high score, 182.
And that's not quite going to get it done. Very important for Dave Wodka to strike here in the 10th frame. He needs to put some pressure on to Brian Voss, and there's the first one.
Oh, Marshall, that one looked fine. He was right there. A power shot, wasn't it?
Well, he's definitely the power player of our threesome right here.
Has to keep the pressure on Brian Voss, who still has 11. An 11-pin advantage for Brian Voss.
And with the strike here, you can narrow that advantage down to 1. There still is a possibility of a tie.
And there's 2 strikes. And of course, Marshall, in the event of the tie, we have a sudden death single ball roll-off. If one bowler knocks down 9, the other bowler knocks down 8. The guy that knocks down 9 pins is the winner, and that one would advance to the championship match. So still a possibility of a tie, still a possibility of sudden death.
Dave Wodka right here with a very, very important fill ball. With a strike here, he shoots 225 and puts a lot of pressure on Brian Voss.
And he gets it.
A very friendly roll of the 2-pin as he takes a little bit of a bow. He's got to be thanking somebody on this shot. The ball is going to come in light. As we take a look at him on lane 36, the ball goes out to about 3. It's not coming back far enough, but he gets a nice roll onto the 2-pin for the strike. Brian Voss needs a strike and a spare to win.
So Wodka has put as much pressure on as he possibly could, and now Brian Voss is up in the 10th.
Biggest shot of the tournament. That's a Hall of Famer right there. Pressure, give me more of it. That's not quite done yet, Brian. You still need to fill this next frame. We take a look at the classic form, the straight arm swing, the good release of Brian Voss, and we'll take a look. Let's see how he feels about this one. I think that's a yes. Still important, Gary, for Brian to at least get a spare. He must make a spare. So Dave knows he's still not quite out of this match yet.
Well, a strike will do it, won't it, Marshall?
And Dave's out of it now. Brian's over there celebrating with some of his good friends. And look at that. That's class. Dave Wodka applauding the veteran Hall of Famer, Brian Voss.
Great performance by Dave Wodka, who still will be in search of his first PBA title. So Brian Voss closes it out by striking out in the 10th, and he'll be back and will be back with Tim Criss in a championship match. Opponents, 236 to 225 for Dave Wodka, 172 for Amleto Monacelli. If Brian Voss or Tim Criss rolls a 300 game in the championship match, he will receive a $1 million bonus, courtesy of the Showboat Hotel, Casino, and Bowling Center in Las Vegas. Well, here's a look at our other 20 finalists this week. At number 6, Walter Ray Williams Jr., the reigning PBA Player of the Year, made a valiant effort last night, but was not able to set himself up for today's final. 11th place, Del Ballard Jr., this touring veteran and two-time U.S. Open champion, finished just out of the top 10. Norm Duke, you saw him win his 14th career title on our telecast a couple of weeks ago at the Tucson Open. He finished 15th. 18th place, Bob Learn Jr. After a slow start early on this year, Mr. 300 is beginning to find his game. 22nd place, Norm Titus, the lone New Jersey representative, to make the top 24. Well, Pittsburgh Steelers running back Jerome Bettis joined the pros on Monday for Pro-Am action, and the bus proceeded to roll a .299 here at Carolier Lanes, leaving just a solid 8-pin on his last shot. Of course, you can catch the bus this year as the NFL returns to CBS. And they're getting set for our championship match, Tim Criss and Brian Voss. Well, it certainly didn't look like Jerome Bettis needed any bowling tips, but most of us do. And with this week's tip, here's Marshall Holman.
With today's reactive resin balls and with bowling centers using significantly more oil on the lane, you'll find that you need to pay more attention to caring for your ball. The good news is there are plenty of things you can do. In maintaining your ball, you want to keep in mind that the surface of your ball needs to complement the surface of the lane. The condition of your ball contributes to how it rolls down the lane. Now, many pros will use steel wool or sandpaper to remove the extra oil that the ball absorbs from the lane. These abrasives will make your ball hook sooner. There are also a number of polishes that you can use to enhance the performance of your ball. Unlike the abrasives, polish will make your ball hook later. The bottom line is, the better you maintain your ball, and that means removing the extra oil that builds up on the surface and in the pores, the better you'll be able to control your break point. And that's the key to higher scoring.
And a high score should be what it takes to capture today's tournament. The championship match between Brian Voss and Tim Criss is coming up next after this message and a word from your local station. At the head of the pro pins for the first and fifth frames of this championship match is the Bud pin. If either bowler strikes during these two frames, Budweiser will make a $1,000 contribution to the PBA Tour Foundation. There you see the Bud pin. And there you see the handshake. Our top seed Tim Criss taking on a very hot Brian Voss in the championship match. And Tim Criss up first, 31-year-old from Bel Air, Maryland. His wife Sherry in attendance. Marshall, they travel from tournament to tournament in their lovely motor home.
And what a nice way to start.
And that is $1,000 to the PBA Tour Foundation, courtesy of Budweiser after the strike from Tim Criss. And Brian Voss now up in lane one. Brian, hot on this pair. Marshall, do you think that's a disadvantage for Tim Criss or not?
Well, it generally should be, but Criss got that good break in the first frame. That could loosen him up. But Brian Voss, he should have things going his way, but maybe the commercial break took a little air out of his sails as he comes in high.
And leaves the 3-6-10. And you have often mentioned about that's the hardest shot in a match, the shot after a commercial break.
Well, when you've been sitting for a while, you do lose your rhythm a little bit. Right now, Brian Voss must forget about it and just make this spare the 3-6-10. Fortunately, the 9-pin's not there, so you don't have to worry about a sleeper, Brian.
Follow all your favorite sports and get updated scores and stats on the net. CBS Sportsline has exclusive columns and video highlights, plus interviews, chats, and more. Go to cbs.sportsline.com.
You know, as you take a look at the records of these two great players, Brian Voss with 18 titles and Tim Criss with 2. That's another nod in Brian's favor.
And another strike for Brian Voss as well. Strikes in frame number 2, and Tim Criss working on a strike in the first will be up in the second frame. By the way, our TV pair today, lanes 35 and 36, and right now Tim Criss up on lane 36. And there you see how Tim did.
They made that big charge last night, Gary, to get the lead in. With a big charge with his ball right there to take a 10-pin lead in this match. So maybe we can throw away the advantage for Brian. Take a look at Tim Criss. He throws the ball slow. He throws a lot of turn. Hooks the ball into the pocket. That's the comfortable delivery and release for Tim Criss.
So Tim Criss starting out with a couple of strikes, looking for a 3-bagger now as he moves over to lane 35. A die-hard Oriole fan. Solid strike from Tim Criss. So he has opened things up with a 3-bagger.
Great shot from Tim on the left-hand lane. We'll take a look once again. Watch the balls. It sails to the right and then hooks hard in the back end. And a happy Tim Criss with 3 in a row. Feeling better about his bowling than he is about his Orioles. Gotta hurry.
Brian Voss answers as well, and you could see how elated and animated he was over that strike.
Well, you always have a better reaction on a shot that's fortunate. Right now, Brian's ball is a little bit light, but ooh, it just carried.
And Brian Voss now on lane 35 of the fourth frame. There you see our scoreboard. So right now, Voss down by 10 as Tim Criss has been perfect through 3.
To even up the match. Stop it. That ball just at the last minute, it looked like it was creeping high, but it's set up in the pocket. Stopped hooking and was able to knock a ball down.
And Marshall, it appears that both bowlers now, Brian Voss we know was hot on this pair earlier, and Tim Criss has not been affected by waiting for the winner of the shootout round.
Well, you'd think he'd be a little bit intimidated by that gentleman right there, but not as yet.
Oh, sensational.
4 strikes in a row for Tim Criss, and just not paying any attention to the opposition, just taking care of his own business as Brian sits and waits for his opportunity to get back up and throw some more strikes.
If either bowler strikes here in the 5th frame, $1,000 will be donated to the PBA Tour Foundation courtesy of Budweiser. And that's where we are, frame number 5. Tim Criss working on 4. Brian Voss working on 3 consecutive strikes. Well, $1,000, 5 in a row, and $1,000 more for the PBA Tour Foundation courtesy of Budweiser. Tim Criss unaffected right now apparently by the pressure. He's been on the PBA Tour 14 years, only has 2 national titles, but is bowling as well as you can bowl right now. And once again, I'll tell you what, PBA Tour Foundation picks up another $1,000 courtesy of Budweiser after that strike from Brian Voss.
Brian Voss keeping the pressure on with that strike. He cut the deficit from 20 down to 10 with a strike here in the 6th frame to make it an even ball game. And all Tim Criss can do is just sit there and feel good about that 5 in a row, I would.
Well, 10 pins down for Brian Voss, and if he's going to make it even, and if we should wind up even after 10 frames, Marshall, as we said earlier, sudden death, single ball roll-off will determine the winner of this tournament. Oh, my.
Oh, what a tough, tough blow for Brian Voss as he leaves the 3, 4, 6, and the 7. Right now his ball's going right through the heart, and he does not get the good break. You see the 3-6 on the right-hand side, the 4-7 on the left, and what did I just do? A split that can be made. Get the ball to the right-hand side of the 3, slide it over, but it's in the channel.
Well, nothing for Brian Voss, and that may indeed leave the door open for Tim Criss, the top seed in the Johnny Petraglia Open. We'll be back in a moment. 5, and talking about perfect, 2 weeks ago in Reno, Parker Bowe in the 3rd bowled a 300 game. It was not in the championship game. It was in the shootout round, and Tim Criss through 5 today is perfect in the championship game. I'll tell you what, Marshall, 300 could be on the horizon for him.
Right now, business, get the shot in the 6th frame off your hand, throw a strike, and 10 more pin lead. That's exactly what he did.
Well, if Tim Criss rolls a 300 game in the championship match, he will receive a $1 million bonus courtesy of the Showboat Hotel, Casino, and Bowling Center in Las Vegas.
And all he has to do is throw 6 more shots that look something like that.
Piece of cake, right?
Yeah, maybe for him. Brian Voss right now trying to win for the 12th year in a row. Ooh. And Brian Voss just received a gift from Tim Criss as Tim leaves a difficult split. Ball coming in light. 6 pin goes around the 10. Head pin goes around the 2, 4, 8. Now this can be made, but it is extraordinarily difficult. As you can see, Tim sees the fact that the ball's not coming up. Goodbye $1 million and hello match. He's going for it.
Next Saturday, the battle begins for one of the crown jewels of amateur sports when CBS Sports presents first-round action at the NCAA College World Series. LSU looking to make it a 3rd consecutive College World Series championship coming up next Saturday. Well, there you see a look at the score. And an open for Tim Criss.
And it's down to a 24-pin lead. And Brian Voss, great shot. Solid.
And a solid 10.
Solid 10. We've seen a few of those today.
Marshall, why was this a great shot? The solid 10 is there. What made this a great shot?
Well, he got it off his hand the way he wanted to. Watch the ball charge back solid in the pocket. Anytime you can hit solid in the pocket, that's all you can do as a bowler is make the shot. Sometimes the pins do not respond. But certainly a good recovery from the previous frame when Brian left that very large split.
And there you can see Tim Criss up by 24. And if it were not for that open by Tim, this might have been almost out of reach, Marshall.
Well, he certainly put Brian back into the game. And, boy, you know, he's got to be kicking himself right now. He still has a 24-pin lead. But Brian Voss is very much in the match. Needs to make the adjustment. Remember, this is the lane he left the big split on, Gary. Well, watch the projection as he gets the ball farther out onto the lane, delays the roll, comes back into the pocket, takes care of business. That shot. That's what I wanted.
Here's Tim Criss, 8th frame.
And so often happens in professional bowling. You come in light on one lane and you come in high on the next. He makes the adjustment on the opposite lane, as we can see his ball going right through the heart, leaving just the 3 and the 6 pins.
Gets the 10 a kick out, but still with 3 and 6 up for the spare conversion for Tim Criss in the 8th. So we'll move to the 9th now. Tim Criss up by 24. Tim Criss, though, working on a spare, and Brian Voss working on a strike.
And if Tim Criss were to go strike, spare, strike, in the next couple of frames, he would shoot 232. Right now, Brian Voss, if he strikes the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, he can shoot 238. So this game is still up for grabs. Tim Criss up by 24 pins in the 9th frame. And there's that same great shot that Brian Voss threw a couple frames ago, leaving the solid 10. Once again, the same for Tim Criss. Take a look at the 6-pin right around the bottom. I tell you, bowling can be very, very cruel. Got up there and made a professional shot. You see the reaction. Oh my gosh, I thought I had it. Take care of the 10-pin.
Well, tonight on CBS, it begins with Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, followed by Early Edition, and then it's Walker, Texas Ranger. That's all tonight, beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern here on CBS. Brian Voss now up, lane 36, for his shot in the 9th, working on a strike.
He's still in this match. He must have that, had to have that strike. Knocks that lead down to 14 pins. And right now, if he were to get up and throw 2 strikes in the 10th, he would force Tim Criss to double to win this tournament. Take a look at Brian Voss. The form is there. Trust your game, Brian. Great shot from Brian Voss. And the importance of that reaction, too.
And Brian Voss bowling like a man that has been on the tour for many years with a lot of experience and a lot of tournament wins. All that true. Here's another guy, Tim Criss, that's been on the tour for a long time, but only 2 PBA titles, not bowling like that today.
There's a shot that just barely held on, Gary. That ball looked a little high. Right now, Brian is very, very pleased with that reaction. What a shot. As we'll take a look, watches the ball, leaves his hand, goes out around 11, goes to 3. Watch it hook a little bit high in the pocket. But fortunately, all the pins are down. That strike right there forced Tim Criss to mark in the 10th frame. This strike forces Tim Criss to double.
And it wasn't long ago that the lead was 24. Now it is down to 3 for Tim Criss.
And in the 6th frame, it was 42, so it's all gone away. It's just a 3-pin lead for Tim Criss. Brian Voss looking for another one. That's it. He's going back over to talk to his friends. What a great shot and an opportune moment for Brian Voss. So necessary for him to get back into this match. Puts all the pressure squarely on Tim Criss's shoulders with this strike. That's the one he wanted desperately. Now let's go celebrate it.
And Brian Voss is looking to extend the number of years. He has won at least one tournament. He's got 11 consecutive years. If he makes it 12, he'll tie the great Don Johnson for second place.
Now it's work like that that'll put a man into the Hall of Fame. Brian Voss is in. Tim Criss needs 2 strikes and 8 pins to win this tournament. We see Brian Voss. Watch those eyes. Scatter pins. Must have the first strike of the 10th for any chance. Look at that clutch shot, Gary.
And he answers. Tim Criss not out of this yet.
Tim Criss on lane 36. Watch the ball go over about the 17 board, out to about 6. Back solid in the pocket. One more is what he's thinking right now. Just one more strike. I think he can get that 8-pin count to win. But here's the shot. Certainly the shot of the year for Tim Criss.
He's got to have it.
And he just did not make the shot. Brian Voss will be your champion. And to be sitting on the bench and getting a break like that is very, very fortunate.
The 19th career PBA title for Brian Voss.
I'm telling you, this place
Presents the Brunswick Johnny Petraglia Open. Sponsored by Brunswick. Line up with the perfect lineup, only from Brunswick. Budweiser and Bud Light, the official beers of bowling. AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco. If you're not asking for it, you're asking for it. And by Tagamet HP 200. With Tagamet, you can eat like a kid again.
Welcome back. Here's our score on the championship match of the Brunswick Johnny Petraglia Open and the winner, Brian Voss. Right now, we're going to go down to Marshall Holman, who's standing by with Brian Voss.
Thank you, Gary. Brian, 13 wins in 13 years, 19th overall. Congratulations.
It's a wonderful feeling, folks. You never get to win enough. I've been in a little slump, and it's wonderful to be out of it. I want to thank Brunswick for sponsoring this. It's only fitting that Johnny Petraglia is named for this tournament. And I'd like to thank AMF for their confidence in me. And all you people here have been wonderful all week long. And it doesn't get any better than this, baby. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian. Gary, back to you.
All right, Marshall, thanks so much. And there is your winner, Brian Voss. So for Marshall Holman, I'm Gary Seibel saying so long from North Brunswick, New Jersey. Coming up next, CBS Sports takes you to Fort Worth, Texas for live third-round coverage of the MasterCard Colonial.